Hi everybody, welcome to the Manifold channel. Today we're going to georegister a scanned paper map that is a historic map. The process is called georegistration Manifold. It's called georeferencing in Esri. And let's see what we're going to work with here. We're looking at Manifold System Release 9. All this works in the free Manifold viewer as well. I like to keep my projects organized here, so I have different components organized in folders. You can put folders in a project to keep what you're working with organized. And we're going to georeference this image here called slave population. I'm going to double click open the source map, and what I've done is I imported this from a TIFF file, this image called slave population, and then I dragged and dropped that into a map. I like to work with doing georeferencing with layers and maps. It just works out to be more convenient. And what this does, this is a historic map that shows the slave population of the southern states of the United States compiled from the census of 1860. It shows on a per county basis the percentage of each county that was slaves. So for example, some of these counties have pretty high percentages, like 71%, 82% here. And if we look at the map here, we can see that there's certain places in the map where they mark cities. For example, Charleston and Savannah. We can see where the locations are of those cities. We're going to use those to georeference the map. And the classic way of georeferencing a scanned paper image like this is that what you do is you mark control points at various locations. And then you go to some destination target map. For example, the target map that we're going to use is this one here of Bing Street Maps. And then you mark control points there as well, and where they match, that's where the system georegisters it using the register pane. We're going to do something a little bit different here, and instead what we're going to do is we're going to mark locations for where these various cities are. I don't want to bore everybody here by doing all that manually, so let's just show you how I did that. And the first thing we do is in the with the source, let's turn off the target map here so it doesn't get in the way. So the first thing we're doing in the source map in the info pane, I marked the I assigned a coordinate system of a pseudo-Mercator to this slave population map. Doesn't matter what it is, but I just did that so that as a matter of convenience I could drag and drop a drawing into that and then start marking points in the drawing. So I created a drawing called Slave Cities, and then I dragged and dropped that Slave Cities drawing into the map, and I started marking points every place on the map where there was locations. For example, here where there was a Charleston and Savannah, I marked a point at that spot. If we look at the Slave Cities table, you can see that the table has a name with the name for each of the cities that's marked. And we can see those names by dragging and dropping the labels that I created. And there they are. So there's one for Charleston and one for Savannah. And to see how all these things came together, let's actually mark a new one, because it's that simple a process. And let's see, right around here is Austin. So here where there's Austin, I'm going to click on the Slave Cities layer to make the focus there. And I'm going to choose here create point, and what I'll do is I'll mark a point right at that location where there's Austin. You can see I'm putting it right in the middle of that circle that's marked in the map. And here I'm going to enter the name Austin, and click add record to add the record. And there, I've just added a new one called Austin. So now I'll control click on that to zoom to fit to that layer, and you can see we now have a whole bunch of points that have been marked here. It actually goes more quickly than you think when you're marking all the different points, for example, for Bowling Green and all these other spots. And what we're going to do with this Slave Cities layer that we've created is we're going to use it as a control points layer, and we're going to use them as control points for the source. Now, to use a drawing as a control points drawing, we have to tell it what field we want to use for the name. And this is a little bit inside baseball here. We have to add a property, field name register, and the name that we're going the attribute field that we're using for the name is called name in this particular table. We saw that from the table. So there, I've added that property. I've clicked OK. The way I did that, by the way, I right-clicked on the Slave Cities drawing, chose properties, and then I added that new property. Okay, so now we have what we can use as control points for this source map, and the way we can use those as control points, because you can actually mark control points manually, or if you like, you can load control points from any drawing that has points in it, which also has a field name register property. And in this case, there's that Slave City, so I'm going to click that, and right there I've loaded all these control points that I can use for this source map. If I want to see where they are, I can click Edit Control Points, and that turns on all the tags for Edit Control Points. And as you can see, there are tags for Edit Control Points for all the places where I had where there were points in the slaves city drawing. All right, super. Now let's take a look at our target, and I want to georeference this to a target map, and my target map is simply a Bing Streets map, and here it is. There's nothing fancier than that, and the key thing is now what I'd like to do is, in the classic way, for each of the points that are here, like for example for Austin or for St. Augustine or whatever, I'd mark a corresponding control point, using the register pane, for all these guys here. But I'd rather not do that manually. Instead, what I'd rather do is I'd rather automatically pull the names and locations of cities from, say, an existing data file, like a shapefile or something like that. So first off, in the target map, I'll choose the source map. That's when we're going to georegister. And you can see that Manifold, the register pane, reached out to the source map, and it took the list of all the different control points that are here, and it loaded them for use into the target map. So these are all the ones that we want to populate. Normally, we'd click on one of these, like New Orleans, and we go in here manually and, define a control point for where New Orleans is located. Like I say, I don't want to do any of that. I want to skip all that stuff. Instead, I want to take advantage of this here in the project, this cities drawing that I loaded, and I just loaded this from a website. I downloaded the locations of a few hundred U.S. cities. And there's lots of them here. If you want to see what they all are, you can actually drag and drop some cities labels into the map. I created those labels. So we can see there's a lot of labels here for example, Amarillo, Lubbock, San Angelo, Laredo, Corpus Christi, and stuff like that, which are not used in the source map. That's okay. We can still use these as control points. And the way we do that is in the register pane. I choose here, save control points, and first what I've got to do is I've got to right-click on the cities, and I've got to add that property. I've got to add that, let's see, field name register. And the name of the record here is name. It's not case sensitive, so I could have just put it upper and lowercase. Click OK. And now I'll be able to use that as a source of control points for the register pane. There, you can see it's just appeared there, cities. So I'll click on that. And what Manifold did is it went into this cities layer, and let me open up the table for that, and it loaded in all these points, and it doesn't care about other fields, for example, the state field or anything like that. It just looks at the name field because that's the one it was told to use, and it scans down the name field, finding a name which is going to match one of the control points that are listed here. So, for example, it's going to go through that cities file and look for cities called Little Rock, and the first one it finds, that's the one it's going to assign to here. So one of the things you want to do if you want to use a shapefile or something, it's a list of cities imported from a shapefile or whatever, you want to make sure that it doesn't have like 20 different cities called Little Rock, because then that's not going to match the ones you want to use. So in all the cities here, there aren't any duplicates. So for example, like there's a Charleston, West Virginia. There's also Charleston, North Carolina or South Carolina, or wherever it is. Let's see which one we used here. Charleston, South Carolina. So what I did is I manually removed in the cities layer the dot that was formerly here for Charleston, West Virginia, so that wouldn't interfere with the georegistration. But all these were loaded automatically, so that's pretty cool. Let's see. Let's register the slave population layer, and what I want to do, I want to use for a method. I'm going to use thin plate spline, which is my go-to method, and I'm going to use only 1 pixel division. The image here, the slave population image, is pretty darn big. If you look at it, we can see that it's a 10,500 by 8,300 pixels. So it's not a small image. Okay, back here in the register pane with the target map, I choose that again, thin plate spline, and pixels. Let's do a preview. Let's see how fast Manifold can calculate the preview. Manifold's pretty fast at this, but still it's going to take some time to do it. We're working with a Ryzen 9 12-core. Okay, that's done. A 12-core CPU, which has 24 threads. Manifold will use all of them. Here, let's turn this to 50% capacity and see how Manifold did. As we zoom in here, we can see that the georegistration is not bad using the cities. It's actually pretty good in some locations. For example, around here, on the coastline where Charleston and Savannah are located, considering that that's a historic map. So that looks okay. Let's based on what we see in the preview, let's go ahead and let's make it happen. So let's click register, and it's going to do the registration process for real this time, not just doing a preview. And it's going to take about the same amount of time. Thin plate spline is actually a fairly computationally intensive method. All right, so there's a slave population, and it just iterates the name. It changed slave population 2. Let's right-click on this and choose renamed related, and we'll call that Geo-Reg. That'll rename the image and the table at the same time. And let's just throw that into position. Drag and drop that into the map, and let's see how that works. Okay, I need to change the style on that. Let's change it to RGB. And there we go. We've just georegistered the source map. That's what it looked like originally, and that's what it looks like now. We can zoom in and take a look, and let's turn off the cities and the cities labels. And if we like, we can use the layers pane here to make that a say 50% transparent. So we can see, on a modern map of the United States, a Bing map, looking at where the dark locations are, where there were a higher percentage of slaves, we can see that, for example, here in Concordia County, there were 91% slaves, and up here in Tensas County, or it was 90%. Madison County was 88%. If we want to see how those correlate to modern counties, up here I've got a miscellaneous, in my miscellaneous folder I've got a counties layer, which I can drag and drop. That's modern counties. And let's drag and drop the counties labels in there, so we can see how all this overlays. For example, here's Wilkinson County, and it's probably getting confusing for people, so I might not have been wise to throw in those counties, because a lot of the counties' names have changed. For example, here's Amity County, here's Franklin County. The shapes of some of these counties have changed since 1860. There's Adams County. And georegistration, as you can see, is not perfect, but it's pretty good. If we wanted to improve the georegistration, how would we do that? That's pretty easy to do. Let me go back here to 50%. In places where the georegistration is not so hot, like down here, for example, in Texas, which was very definitely frontier. I mean, what we could have done is we could have added some control points. For example, here along the border, say one here in the bend where there's Laredo, another one here where there's where the Rio Grande makes that little bend right here to map it to there, and here at the end of the border we could drag that there, and that would give better georegistration. But for a quick and dirty approach, just using a bunch of cities that were historically marked cities and georegistering them to modern cities, and saving ourselves the hassle of marking a whole lot of control points, the georegistration came out remarkably well, especially in places here in the historic eastern part, where there were a lot more cities that could be matched, for the source map. I hope you've enjoyed this presentation. Like I say, all this works in the free viewer. Download it, and it's absolutely free. You can do all this stuff in the free viewer, so give it a try. It's a great way to georeference historic maps like this particular one, which is part of the mother lode of history, just an incredible treasure trove of historic maps that you can download for free from the Library of Congress. Other countries have similar resources. For example, if you're researching World War I or World War II history in Europe, or you're interested in other historic maps, a lot of those maps from the 1700s on were just remarkably accurate, and with a little bit of georeferencing, georegistration magic and Manifold, can be overlaid and bring all kinds of insights, historical insights, when overlaid on modern maps. Thanks for watching, and goodbye from Manifold Land. Well, that was fun. If you want to see more, visit us at www.manifold.net. As always, Manifold delivers the world's most advanced, highest quality spatial products for GIS and DBMS at a low price that you can afford. Once again, that's manifold.net. See you soon.